So today we are going to be talking about um, AI. Now, AI is something that seems to be on everybody's lips at the moment, whether it's, you know, um, on investing, people are talking about AI and the importance of AI, whether it's in technology, everything is dominated by AI at the moment. And of course, our very own industry is dominated by discussions about AI. Now, of course, to many, AI can be quite alienating. It can be a buzzword that kind of brings up a lot of kind of negative connotations. It can be quite intimidating. It's very new. The thought of having to retrain yourself to allow yourself to use AI can be very daunting, and that's something that I want to avoid here for sure. So today's session is essentially telling a tale of my journey into AI, and how you can implement it nice and quickly, nice and easily. And I hope that throughout the presentation, it can become slightly more, I don't want to say humanized, because of course AI is not human yet. But hopefully I can humanize the topic of AI so that you can bring a couple of things into your day-to-day routine that may help you. Of course, um, I think that you shouldn't feel bad if you don't want to use it after this, but as long as you're aware of it and you understand potentially how it may help you in the future, I will be a happy man. Now, before we get into all of that good stuff, who am I? Well, I have been in ESL for a grand total of 8 years now. It feels only yesterday when I started, and everyone was raving about using a textbook, and now nobody can use textbooks apparently anymore. I've been at EF London for 2 years. I'm the director of studies here. So I manage around 35 teachers. The most important thing that I suppose I bring to the table is that I manage a group of teachers who are very kind of tech diverse. They come from a range of different backgrounds. They have a range of different technological kind of capabilities. And my job is to make sure that they are all able to teach to their best abilities and feel as comfortable as possible in this ever changing world. And believe it or not, I am an extremely recent AI convert. I didn't use AI in any form, well, at least that I knew about, until about 4 weeks ago when I was asked to do this presentation. So it really is a very fresh look at AI. I've done a lot of research so that I can bring you all something valuable. So let's get into it. Now, first things first, I see everybody typing in the chat. That is wonderful. I want plenty more of that. No ideas are bad ideas. I'd like everyone to be open-minded, friendly, and have a nice open forum and discussion in this Zoom chat, because I've got questions for you. If you've been part of my webinars before, I am all about sharing ideas and questions. So let's kick it off in that vein. So who has used AI in any point in their work? So in the Zoom chat, let me know. Yes? And maybe tell me a little bit about how you use it, or no, just no. Up to you. I'll just give you 30 seconds. What are your thoughts? Yes, yes, no, 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 yes. Deep AI translator. Interesting. Gaps for dictionaries, marvelous. Yeah. Check for plagiarism. What a fantastic use. You're almost using AI to counter AI there. That's great. Good. ChatGPT for tests. You're really true. I catch a lot of my teachers doing it. I shouldn't say catch, that's quite negative. I see a lot of my teachers doing it because it saves them so much time. AI detection. Sometimes I use ChatGPT. One of my friends started using ChatGPT for advice about his life. Not necessarily recommending that, but it's an interesting use. Check essay tasks, researching. Thank you, everyone. Twee and DFIT. So, as we can see, we have people who have, a lot of different ways that they interact with AI. Now, of course, I didn't see as many no's in the chat as I was expecting. Perhaps that's because of the political landscape we're in now, where AI really is spoken about so regularly, and training sessions like this one are so readily available to everybody. Now, I've got another question for you. What words come to mind when I say AI? I've got smart here, a positive one. So think about positive and negative in the Zoom chat. I'll give you another 30 seconds. What words come to mind when I say this? AI. Cheating. Yes, iPad Lara. Good. Cheating. I agree. We've all caught our students using it. Simple Skynet. Some Terminator fans in the chat there. Good. Help. Uncontrollable, impersonal, laziness, supportive, scaffolding, simplification, support tool, broad. Marvelous. Just 5 more seconds. Keep them coming in. Overcoming perplexity and doubts. That's nice. It can simplify things. It can make things too complicated. Develop creativity. That's nice. Save time. I saw time saving come up like 4 or 5 times at the same time on my screen. Absolutely. We'll be looking at that. Students to skip homework. Yes, it is funny, isn't it? It often saves us time, but at the same time, it saves our students time, but it benefits us, but doesn't benefit their learning journey. It is interesting. Delegating jobs, Irina. Yeah, absolutely. It does sometimes feel like it's something that we delegate things to, right? That's a really nice way of putting it. Okay, marvelous. So I'm going to do some talking at you now. And like any good session, I'd just like to quickly set out our aims. So, what I'd like to do in this session is just explore how AI can kind of build on the acquisition that you're already, I'm sure, encouraging in your students and to support you doing that. Now, I want to make this crystal clear that this session is all about how AI can help you to grow as teachers and can help you by adding another tool to your toolkit. It is not about replacing elements of what you do. What you do as a teacher is marvelous and I'm sure all over the world fantastic. And we don't want to take anything away from that for our students. What we want to do is make your lives easier and to potentially add value to what you're already doing. And of course, to add a deeper understanding about AI and how we can integrate it into our teaching methods and our classrooms. Of course, there are going to be limitations. We're not all in the same boat, and I certainly don't want to paint us all with the same brush. But I'd like to discuss this, and if you are able to, how you could potentially bring it into your classroom. So let's quickly talk about what AI is. So AI, generally, we're looking at these computer systems that can learn and reason and emulate somebody who is freer thinking. Now, of course, this is rapidly adapting and often controversial, right? As you said in the chat, there are very positive things and some kind of things that we're skeptical about. I watched an interesting show while I was researching this topic on how some people likened AI to a baby that has an infinite capacity to learn, but as humans, we have a cap on supposedly we have a cap on the amount that we are able to learn, and we have an interaction that guides us to show us what we want to learn. We have preferences, but AI is almost all encompassing, right? Alex has said in the chat here, it hallucinates, which it does. When you have an infinite amount of information to pull from, it's almost so I was just laughing at mischievous baby in the chat there. um it's almost difficult to focus it, which has been some of the struggles with early AI development. Now, AI in education spans a range of different elements. So we've got adaptive learning systems. So I'm referring to things that can adapt to our students and can adapt to the situations they're put in. Now, of course, this would typically look like you grading something, as in grading your language to your students' needs, or differentiating material. taking something that is complex and giving it to the stronger students, and perhaps simplifying it with more scaffolding for weaker students. Now, AI allows you to adapt that. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to be talking about some language learning apps, your Duolingo, your Babbles, of course, your EF Hellos. If anybody's tried EF Hello, very nice app, award-winning app. We've got some virtual tutors. We'll talk about our data-driven insights and how could we go through a presentation or a training session on AI without mentioning everybody's favorite ChatGPT. And we'll be talking about how you can plan with ChatGPT later on in the session, which I'm sure you've all tried it before. So I'll just go over my thoughts on it. So why use it in the classroom? It helps you to tailor your lessons. We've all been in that terrible situation where we've opened a textbook, we look at Unit 3, and it's on something that you know your students can't engage with. AI can build that bridge between the distinct language points. So, for example, the present perfect to the context, right? It can create your own context for you, which is fantastic. Usually in the past, I should say now, you would generate that. If you were extremely committed to this class, you would try to regenerate this to ensure that they have the most positive learning experience and one that they get the most out of, which would often be extremely time consuming. I know that I've been hunched over a computer for maybe 30 minutes to an hour writing a fake news article that uses different forms of the past. Whereas now AI just pushes that to you. You, of course, have the opportunity to grade things now. We'll go into grading a little bit later. For me, I still think that it needs a guiding hand from a teacher, and I think that it can be dangerous for students to think that they can get all of the feedback they need from this AI tool. And of course, it's engaging, it's modern. Everybody loves AI. People are now growing up in the age of AI. So they're going to be used to using AI. If you think about when we talk about students' lower attention spans at the moment because of TikTok, we have this TikTok generation that we've all struggled to engage with. Now we have an AI generation that we're going to struggle to engage with, who require almost instant answers, instant simplified texts. And 24/7 availability. We as humans are not available 24/7, and students don't expect us to be. Although some of them do, some of the keener students do. But AI is there to answer their questions 100% of the time, whenever, day or night. Now, I've given you like a little example here at the bottom. A student for daily vocabulary practice just turns on that app. Perhaps they've turned on Duolingo and they'll practice some extra vocabulary, and it'll adapt and it will give harder or easier questions depending on the responses. So it can help to engage students, but as Sasmita said in the chat here, it can also reduce the attention span of students in class when it matters. We'll get onto that a little bit later, but instant gratification through AI isn't necessarily a positive thing. Now, let's kick off with chatbots. Now, chatbots are, well, they were very new to me because I'd only really interacted with those kind of early 2010 funny kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of impersonator chatbots that would just say, I'll be back in response to kind of whatever I inputted into them. And we used to think it was very funny back then. But now you have chatbots that can replicate specific personalities, specific situations. It can replicate a human being very, very effectively and very fluently. Now, we've got a couple of examples here. We've got Replica, we've got ChatGPT, which can, as I told you about my friend earlier who asks it for advice sometimes, can replicate somebody that's quite close to you. And it engages students in conversation practice. They can have a chat with this thing. It is very natural. Benjamin has mentioned Alexa, Siri, all very good examples of these kind of chatbots. And whether it's writing or speaking, it justifies students learning these specific devices so that they can engage with something. Now, of course, we have teachers from all over the world here. I saw that we had someone from Argentina earlier in the chat, and I used to teach in Argentina. And quite often, one of the major barriers that I used to have to overcome was, teacher, why am I learning this phrase when I'll only use it in this classroom? Now, I was lucky enough to have students who had eyes to kind of travel internationally, but I know that that's not the case for everybody. So giving them a purpose to learn this language and to practice it on in a chatbot could really help. You know, learn this bit, we'll use it on the chatbot, see if it works. Oh yeah, it did. Fantastic. Now, some of the benefits of this are, of course, you've got conversation practice 24/7. The feedback is immediate, and it's also slightly less judgmental, because if you're talking to, say, uh, myself before I taught, I may react negatively when somebody says something. It's like, oh, what was that? I don't understand. Sorry, I don't get what you're saying. And that is a natural fear for students. And these chatbots remove this fear, right? It's never going to say, oh, what? No, I don't get it. It will just say, sorry, can you repeat that? It's very neutral. It's a very like an easy way to practice your language without feeling put about. Now, of course, we've got some problems with chatbots and virtual assistants. I know that there's a possibility of someone becoming a bit attached to this chatbot or virtual assistant to form a relationship with it, or a perceived relationship with it, which can be damaging socially, especially for younger learners. Younger learners may find it difficult to separate themselves from a chatbot and real life, which, of course, while it sounds very heartbreaking, can also kind of be difficult for them to overcome. Now, I've mentioned some positives and negatives. Now it's time for the Zoom chat. I'm bored of my own voice. So tell me, what are some positives and negatives of Zoom chatbots in your opinion? I'll give you 30 seconds again. You'll notice I had a little conversation here that you can read. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about future technology. Nah, let's talk about something else. Travel, great. So just 30 seconds in the Zoom chat. What are some positives and negatives of a chat bot, in your opinion? There's no empathy. Yeah, good. It saves time. Sure, sure. It's empathetic and kind. It's very empathetic, I find. Yeah. Not always relevant. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Sometimes lacks information. It can be too cautious, Julia. Absolutely. Good. It might be good for socially awkward students. Yeah, good. Real practice for kind of expressing themselves, right? Waste of time, ask for direct assistance. Interesting, Alex. Depends how big your classroom is, of course. If you have a class of 30 students, it may be difficult to give them all of that direct assistance. Sure. It's too general. It can be too general. It can also pigeonhole students so that they're always discussing the same thing because the chatbot guides them in that direction. Limited to its knowledge library. Yeah. It has difficulties creating higher levels text. It absolutely does. C1, C2, it really struggles with. And it is unreliable. Nice. Okay, thank you, everybody. Let's move on. We're out of the world of chatbots now. Okay, we're gonna keep this show moving and talk about some pronunciation practice. Now, this was one thing that I had never ever tried before. This pronunciation for me is the cornerstone, and it's the kind of finishing touch to effectiveness as a teacher. Getting pronunciation fun, getting pronunciation unintimidating is probably one of the most challenging things. Students feel silly when they're doing pronunciation, when you're trying to drill students on specific bits of language and specific sounds, it can be really scary. And it's scary for teachers, right? What if they don't do it back? I'm going to look silly. Really difficult thing to master. And I'm very hot on pronunciation, and we're very hot in EF London. We love a bit of pronunciation. So I'd never explored this area of pronunciation practice because I'd always thought it needs that human element. Now, I did try this ELSA program. I will show you some of the results that it gave me. I was hoping to give you a live trial on it, but unfortunately, I couldn't work out how to use my microphone on Zoom and on ELSA. So I gave up and I just took some screenshots. It was really, really interesting. It gives some fantastic instant feedback, which you see here, right? And it gives you some quite nice, actionable suggestions for improvement. I think I can really see how it might help somebody to work on their accent and their speaking fluency because they're doing it in a judgment-free scenario, in a judgment-free situation. It feels very intimidating to do it first time. I felt really uncomfortable practicing pronunciation for the first time with it, but as soon as I saw the results, I thought, wow, it's really really kind of intuitive. It gave me some great insights. And it really identified some pretty important stuff. Now, my fluency is apparently 93%. I was like, yes, good. Even though I felt really weird about it, doing it in an open office, everybody giving me some death stares. Why are you talking about your life as a learner? But you can see here, it gives you kind of a score, which is, of course, really nice. It almost gamifies this for students. Like, let's get a higher percentage. Let's get closer to where we want to be, which is fantastic. It has kind of, it shows you where you're performing well. Like, oh, yes, you're using your nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs. You've used all of those in what you're doing, and you clearly sound like you know where to place them, which is great. It said that my grammar was 98%. Um, I don't know where I made a grammar error, but apparently it flagged it, and that was a bit embarrassing, but that's fine. It's okay to be embarrassed when you're learning. Now, the most important thing that I wanted to point out to you was this bottom part here and this little play button. Now, it is a real shame that I can't show you this live, but it records what you said, it highlights it as it goes, and it shows you where you can improve. So, for example, I remember my stress for so wasn't very good because I was only kind of half paying attention when I was reading stuff. And it paused it and it showed me, oh, maybe you should think about saying so slightly differently, which was great. Um, in terms of goals, I was emphasizing this too much. I emphasizing and adding stress to both words instead of in terms of goals and emphasizing goals more. And it picked up on that. I was amazed. I thought, fantastic. That's great. And it allows you to do as many as you'd like. And of course, you need to create an account after your first one. But it didn't make me pay, which was lovely. And I would never pay for stuff like this. So I would highly recommend, if you can, give this to your students to play around with and see. So just to remind everyone, this is Elsa Speak. I'll just type it into the Zoom chat for you because I know that. There we go. And it does allow you to play it back, which is fantastic. As I said, so it's almost if you, I'm sure a lot of you will remember and be in my position where teachers used to recommend you get a cassette tape and you'd play a cassette tape back and listen back to yourself. More modern day, listen back to yourself on your phone, hear your mistakes, hear how you're doing. But this now you play back and you almost have a teacher playing it back to you, which was really nice. So Elsa Speak, thumbs up. Now, um, Edith has actually raised a very good point there. It stops authenticity and it's too demanding for shy students. Edith, I totally agree. I think that with any of these recommendations I make or anything that I raise, everything will require some sort of learner training. It will require some sort of teacher input beforehand saying, maybe you're looking for this percent, but expect this percent. Maybe you want this and you will get this. It will it will require some management of expectations, certainly from your side. And I agree, Edith, that perhaps it's not the best for everybody. Perhaps in introducing this to extremely shy and students who are perfectionists may not necessarily be a positive, but it's worth a go to see. Now, let's move on to AI in writing and grammar. Now, I saw a lot of people in the chat earlier on talking about how Grammarly Grammarly encourages cheating. It's essentially a fix for something that isn't broken, right? It's not a bad thing to make mistakes in your writing. It's in fact good. It provides teachers with input. It allows you to evaluate stuff. And quite often, Grammarly takes that away from you. Now, I haven't dwelled too much on Grammarly here because I'd like to incorporate something else that you can use. Now, let's just very quickly talk about some of the dangers when using AI for writing and grammar. Now, of course, I see in the chat that we've spoken about kind of Grammarly making students lazy and not seeing their mistakes. What are some of the other dangers that we can think of? Just 30 seconds. I can see Elizabeth help with tests and 3 exclamation marks there. Couldn't agree more. So 30 seconds, just give me some ideas. What are some of the dangers when using them? Weakens your language ability, Preetha. I totally agree. Yeah. Makes you lazy. Cannot identify some meaning, so it gives you incorrect corrections. Very good. Yes, and my charger has fallen out. De-skilling. What a term. De-skilling. I love that. Is that an official term? Very interesting. Whoever said that. Stunts creativity. Yes. No feedback. Good and often irrelevant feedback sometimes. Thank you, Pia. It's nice to meet you. Hopefully you'll be able to see the rest later. Yeah. Incorrect or inconsistent suggestions. It decreases the user attention and focus. Good. Yeah. Essays are just finished instantly, right? I think obviously we have elements of students cheating and creativity being kind of taken away and students becoming dependent on this. But the incorrect corrections is probably the thing that I'd be most concerned about. And of course, um, as as educators, that's what we want to avoid. We want to avoid these kind of fossilized errors coming about. And students all of a sudden will start challenging you in class. But Grammarly said this. Why is that not right? I've got Grammarly on, right? It can be quite intimidating. Now, what I was actually in a CPD yesterday with my exam teacher, who is marvelous, our senior teacher is an exam teacher, and she was talking about writing feedback and how she can only give one writing feedback per week to students. And quite often, students are um, hungry for more. Especially here in our school, we have a lot of very eager beavers, as we'd say. We have a lot of students who want input, they want feedback. And quite often, our teachers don't have enough time to give them as much as they'd like. So she recommended write and improve. So this is a last minute update to my slideshow. Now, write and improve. Let's see if this link will work. Write and improve is something that Cambridge came out with, and it's essentially a practicing writing bot. So let's imagine we're a beginner learner and we want to write an email to a party. And I say, hello, my name John. I 4 years young. I love party because it fun and friends go all the time too. Full stop. Now let's check. Has a little loading bar there. Naughty AI taking a long time. Now you see that I've been using it 2 days in a row. So it tries to gamify it. It gives you like little medals and stuff and cute little kind of rewards for what you're doing, which I think is quite cute. Continue to feedback. The important bit. Now, did you write about the question? 5 is best. So it marks your task achievement, which is great. Okay, fantastic. And I like how it tries to prompt like little small elements. So see, is this the correct word? It doesn't look right because. Okay, so it's not quite like Grammarly where it's instantly correcting it to something that it thinks it should be. It's almost taking more of a teacher role and it's trying to prompt students to think critically about their work, which I really like. Now, one criticism I do have of it is that the only thing it's going to flag up to a beginner student? Maybe not. I think that it could give you more data, more elements. I'm not sure if you can use it for physics. Why not? You could try it, see, test it out, see what it is. I'm just here to give you the tools to sample. And it also gives you a little tracker here of your progress, which is quite nice, and gives you your CEFR level. Look at that. I went from A1 back to up to B2. I was going to make it to C1, then back to A1. There we are. I tried my best. So yeah, a nice element there for you to bring to your classrooms. And it's just, as I said, this is an extra bit of feedback. It's not to replace the feedback you're giving. As you can see, this is not as much feedback as you would give on this, I'm sure, but it is free. Room 238 EC. It is free. And it just gives students that extra element that they may want. So give it a go. That's Cambridge Write and Improve. Thank you to Lucy Kersey, who is actually doing one of these presentations in a couple of weeks if you want to meet her. So AI for reading and listening, this was me kind of venturing into a realm that I'd never really been into. AI enhanced texts and speech to text and text to speech stuff. So let's start with AI enhanced text. Now, this is one thing that I really struggled with and to get my head around. So let's start with the negatives. We're so used to starting with positives. Let's go straight for the negative. I found these really difficult to use. And for me personally, I'm relatively technologically savvy. You know, I can put together an Excel. But I found this AI Newsella and Read Theory I found very difficult to use. The reason being is that I didn't quite understand what I needed to do to edit texts. But I'm sure if with more practice, I only gave them 10 minutes each, I'll be honest. I think that supposedly they're there to adjust the difficulty of reading. So no more are you going through, say, a newspaper article and picking something that would be best for your students, dependent on the level of language used. The theory behind this would be you could take it and you could adjust it to the level that you need. Now, one thing that I've also gotten feedback about is that you would not say adjust this to level C1. It's AI is more effective when you suggest for it to adjust it to the reading level of a 16-year-old, for example. So rather than going CEFR levels, you should adjust it to where you think a student would be able to kind of read in, say, England or the US. Which is another layer of difficulty because that's not knowledge that everybody has. So very, very useful tool. I suspect not something that I found any success with. But supposedly, Newsella and Read Theory are both very good adaptive kind of script generators. Now, of course, you have ChatGPT that could do that. We'll get onto that later. I hear everyone screaming, but I do it with ChatGPT. We'll get there, I promise. I just want to add some variety to our session here. Now, speech to text and text to speech, this is something I had loads of fun with. I loved, and I use this. I'm sure you use it as well. I use it to speak to some students for just through Google Translate. That's powered by the Google speech to text stuff. And it's fantastic. Now, it can be used to help Students obviously practice their speaking, like they speak into the speech to text thing, and if it recognizes it, great, you won. If you didn't recognize it, maybe there's something for you to work on. But the best part about it is that it can obviously take a YouTube video, shrink it down into text with more accuracy, I found, than YouTube does with its audio captioning, which is fantastic. So all of a sudden, you have an audio script that you can use with your listening exercise, which is great. So it really helps with practicing that listening, kind of going back and forth. And of course, text to speech assist. When you say a word or write a word, and it gives you that extra bit of pronunciation elements, which is fantastic. Now, of course, this can also be a bit disheartening if a student, say, uses text to speech and it doesn't flag it up. And if the student's using that without the teacher around, it can become quite frustrating because there aren't any explanations as to why this is happening. So, again, elements of teacher training here, student training, sorry, we're doing teacher training now, student training in your classrooms, making sure that they understand that they should bring these results to you. This should be like an opportunity for them to open the dialogue with you more and to bring these things to class. It's no longer, you know, them doing something and getting an answer. It's them getting an answer and then finding out why. So make sure your students are aware of that. And now our last section before we kind of go on to the final part is ChatGPT and planning. Now, ChatGPT is a marvelous tool. And I'll be honest, it 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 may boggle your mind to say it. It certainly boggles my mind to say it. I didn't use ChatGPT until 4 weeks ago. I was a staunch believer in my work being my work. I wanted to generate my own things. I was proud of what I've learned. Why would I want something to do this for me? I've taken years of my life and experiences to be able to do this. So I'd never planned using ChatGPT. And my teachers had often planned using ChatGPT, and I'd often roll my eyes and go, oh, yeah, okay, well, whatever. As long as you're happy doing it and it's saving your time, great. And I can't believe I wasn't doing that. Now, of course, it's a major time saver. ChatGPT draws from all sorts of elements, and you can see here that I asked it to create a 1 hour presentation on how AI can be used in the English language classroom and can be engaging and informative for people. So as you can see here, I actually used AI to create this whole presentation on AI. And it was the first time I had ever used AI. So just for those people who are a bit concerned about using it for the first time, I used it for the first time to create this session. So ta-da, twist. There we are. AI created AI session. Robots truly building robots. What a terrifying future we live in. So of course, I took this, I molded it, I made it into my own plan, I added my own elements, but this presentation has been made by ChatGPT. Now, of course, if this had been made by ChatGPT and I sat there and I read off of this plan here and I just went through all of the kind of elements of it, um, robotically almost, it would be a boring experience. There would be very little value in it. And it would have been something that you could chat GPT yourself, right? Now, this whole issue with AI is that people are using it to replace their knowledge. Whereas what I did here, and I hope that you kind of get from this, is that you're using this to allow your knowledge to shine. You're using this to allow the best parts of your teaching to come through so that you can have more energy to bring more dynamism into the classroom. You can have extra time to work on that little pronunciation element that you're not really sure on how to teach. And you can put your time into that rather than putting your time into making sure your structure is 100% safe or you're writing every bullet point so that you remember it. ChatGPT can do that for you. So you're there to add the the kind of final parts of the magic formula. You're adding the kind of the magic powder, the dust, right? The good stuff. Whereas ChatGPT is there to kind of give you the foundation. Using it, Lau in the chat says using it as a guide, then you spice it up. Absolutely, Lau. It's like you went to my seminar on spicing up your textbook, spice up your life. So yes, spice it up. Use ChatGPT to give you the foundation, the base of the curry, and then add the spice yourself to that curry metaphor that's confusingly emerged now. Here are a couple of examples of me doing it. I was so proud of myself. Look at how proud I am. I said, "Oh, plan a lesson on present perfect." Almost a very cliched thing to ask it to do. Present perfect. That's everyone's ultimate tests in the ESL world, supposedly. So we've got, travel discussion. I was like, oh wow, it's created a discussion. So it starts with the discussion. Great. It's contextualizing the ideas. Wonderful. And then we've got the introduction to the present perfect. Look at how great this is. Now, of course, if I were in a hurry, I may have gotten this, seen the start of it, but seen the start of it, printed it off. Great. That's my lesson plan. Off I go. Fantastic. Don't need to plan. However, if you look closely, there are some things that I'm not 100% sold on. Now, just in the chat, just have a little read through this plan. What elements would you improve from this plan? Just very quickly, 30 seconds, have a very quick look. What would you add? What would you take away just from these first two stages of a lesson? Grammar presentation, make it interactive. Good. Too small to read on both pages, I'm afraid. Yeah, sorry about that. Structure, Preeta, interesting. Lead in, Gala, interesting. Especially if you want to engage your students, you want to play a little game, get them throwing something around. Good. Invent a story in the present perfect. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So setting the tone, setting the context, that's good. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people have kind of picked this out, right? Where's the context? Right? And I was reading through it and I thought, wait, it can't have done this. But it did. It missed the context. It just said explain the present perfect. It's just assuming that you have the students that are able to kind of like able to understand the succinct points without any context, and B, assuming that you have the time and that you have the energy and the students who are going to engage with this massive presentation here, right? And it assumed that students would want to walk in and do a conversation on travel straight away without, I don't know. I know that I've had classes who practically blackmail me into doing Cahoots, right? So it doesn't take into account these elements. And for me, this was not best practice in this plan. It was quick, it eliminated a lot of the legwork, but at the end of the day, it's not a trained teacher like you or I. So remember that. Continue to think critically about what it's producing. As I said, it brings the foundation, but you don't want to, I suppose, to coin a phrase, you don't want to build your foundations on sand, right? You want to make sure that everything is clear, concise, and where you want it to be before moving on. So, sure, by all means, generate this plan from ChatGPT, and then check through it yourself and add what you want to it. So, as I said in the previous slide, it's not all roses. Of course, it's not. AI is not perfect yet. And as soon as it is perfect, we should all be scared. I'm joking. So think about your challenges when you're using AI. So I don't know about all of you, but I know that I've worked in schools in the past that do have technical limitations. And we don't all have access to devices. We don't all have access to super fast computers, super fast internet connections. I've worked in schools where there haven't been internet connections. It's not possible to suggest that every teacher will have access to all of these things. It is possible to say that it will eventually influence people beyond these technical limitations, but at the moment, unfortunately, if you do have these technical limitations, it's not something that I suppose is not insurmountable. You will be able to produce high quality lessons without AI. And I feel like a lot of the discussions at the moment are talking about how wonderful it is, how it can change your life. And we are forgetting that we used to work fine without AI. And it is perfectly acceptable to work without AI. Over reliance on technology really can reduce face-to-face interaction. I'm sure you've seen at the start of your classes, perhaps students on their phones, scrolling on something, maybe watching a TikTok or YouTube, whatever, and they're not interacting like they used to. So that's in their L1. L2 is the exact same. I know that L for L2 practice, you have so little time to get students talking to each other in English. Um, but why would you want to kind of interfere with that? Why would you want to stop that from happening with this extra barrier, which may be AI? And of course, um, I think something that was really prevalent in the past, I think that it's gone quiet recently, but I think that there will be more issues around it in the future, is your data privacy and, of course, security concerns for students. Where is the data coming from? Where is the data going to? You've got input coming from somewhere and output coming from somewhere else, right? Very, very confusing, massive gray area. I'm sure you saw the Twitter, one of the very early Twitter AI bots that was released and was essentially trained by Twitter users to say some pretty awful things. And why is that something that couldn't happen in the future? And why is that something that couldn't affect your students in the future? So it's definitely something to bear in mind. Now, overcoming these challenges, as I said, you are the magic formula. All of you are the sriracha on that lovely taco, educational taco, as it were. I'm full of metaphors today. So make sure you're balancing AI with your methods. Your methods are there for a reason. You are wonderful teachers, and I'm sure you deliver fantastic, miraculous classes day in, day out. So why stop that from happening? Make sure you balance what you're doing. Make sure AI doesn't intrude on what you're kind of producing, and choose your AI tools critically. Make sure you're choosing what you want. For example, I wasn't very complimentary of the the reading tools that I can't remember the name of now. How terrible of me. But the reading tools, the generation of the graded texts, I wasn't very complimentary. I just wouldn't use them. Don't feel pressured to use something, and make sure that you use things where you know about the data protection methods. Of course, from a safeguarding perspective, you are all still people who have a duty of care to your students. So do not make sure that you are taking the necessary precautions to safeguard your students. Perhaps your school has an AI policy. If not, perhaps it's time to have an AI policy to help guide you as well. Very, very key takeaways there. Also, providing teacher support and training. I'm sure that this presentation will be available to you if you want to use this in your schools and you want to kind of deliver a CPD on it in your schools. Please do. I always say, steal whatever I have. And I stole this from an AI, so steal away, please. Take it. And if you want to raise the issue in your schools, do. If your school's not necessarily ready for it, perhaps look into policies and trainings outside of that. Now let's talk a little bit about the future. We're talking about the Terminator 6. We're currently on Terminator 1. That silly robotic Terminator, not that liquid Terminator. So um, we have AI integrate VR tools. I worked in a school that had VR goggles that they invested tremendously in. never used, but we invested in them. These tools, and they were there to kind of bring you into different situations that you wouldn't experience in a classroom. Like you were giving instructions on a spaceship, so you were practicing spaceship vocabulary with your with with instruction giving. So that's potential in the future. You got personalized AI tutors. Some maybe perhaps you have a teacher assistant at your school. Perhaps there'll be an AI teacher assistant to help support students in their homework when they're at home. Perhaps there'll be an anti-cheat element to that assistant. Who knows? And the long-term impact, bearing in mind that this has been created by an AI, so they've been very complimentary in this final stage, is that long-term impact-wise, continuous improvement and acquisition, improvement of this technology so that it allows students to acquire more. And of course, bridging educational gaps across different regions. Now, this kind of is an element to consider. In some places, it's likely to bridge educational gaps and allow students to have similar kind of levels of feedback. However, in other places, it's likely to widen the gap, especially if there are social gaps in a place. So always be considerate, always be kind of thoughtful on these things, and make sure that you are doing your due diligence, researching what you're using, um, and not feeling kind of pushed towards anyway. So, some conclusions for you. We've spoken about the benefits of AI. We've spoken about how it can kind of personalize your learning. I've noticed in the chat box there were people that disagreed with how it can personalize learning. People kind of found that it can be unempathetic. It can be a one size fits all. Of course, it's only learned from a certain data set, so there's only so many experiences it can bring. So of course, take of that what you will. We discussed it. It boosts engagement and definitely boosts efficiency for you, but do you want that efficiency from your students? It definitely boosts engagement to a point, but do you think that it will be the positive, good bit of engagement that you want? We spoke about some AI tools. Elsa Speak, for example, everyone seemed to like. The Write and Check with Cambridge, everybody seemed to be intrigued by. And of course, we spoke about challenges and considerations with our integrating AI. Marvelous. So, everyone, that is the end of our training session today on AI. I hope that it's raised some questions. I do really think that a lot of CPDs on AI should be more about raising questions and providing solutions, and allowing people to be more inquisitive. So steal my presentation, use it however you want. And it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to all of you. Thank you all for your interaction in the Zoom chat, every single person, not just the people that I shouted out on the way through. And I hope that you have a marvelous rest of your week and, of course, a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much.